Welcome to Campus Connect on Morris Educational Television. I'm Ed Yaw, President of County College of Morris. I'm pleased to host today's program, sponsored by the Morris Area Consortium for Local Educational Television, a cooperative effort by Morris County schools, colleges, and public libraries to bring you information on key issues in education. Today we will discuss the Fulbright Community College Administrator Seminar in Russia, which I was fortunate enough to have participated in earlier this year. We will be collecting remotely with Dr. Joel Ericson, Director of the Fulbright program in Russia, and President David Armstrong from Broward College in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We begin with Dr. Ericson. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you.
Great to have you. We're trying new technology today. I know you're in a hotel room in New York City, and appreciate you taking the time to be with us. First of all, before we get into the program, if you don't mind, maybe we could talk a little bit about your background and what you did prior to taking on the position of director.
Sure. Well, I've been interested in Russia for years, originally in the Soviet Union, and decided to study Soviet politics in graduate school, and went on to get a doctorate. And rather than going into academia per se, I went into international educational exchanges. So really, for the last 15 years, I've been working in Russia, mostly based in Russia, working for NGOs that administer educational exchanges on behalf of the United States government. And now I've moved to an organization called the IIE, the Institute of International Education, and they run the Fulbright program on behalf of the U.S. government. So as of April 1st of this year, I've been the Moscow director for the Fulbright program, and have been administering that program, including the one that you were on, the Community College Administrators Seminar for Fulbright.
Well, we had a wonderful time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And I remember that when we first met, you'd only been in Moscow, I think, for 3 or 4 days. You had just started on April 1st, and pinching yourself to make sure it wasn't an April Fool's joke, but it was really great. What can you tell us about the Fulbright program in Russia, other than the Community College Administrators program, which we'll get to in a little bit?
Sure. The Fulbright program actually had just celebrated its 40th anniversary, so it's been in Russia for 40 years. The Moscow office has been operating since 1992, and Fulbright has sent many scholars from Russia to the United States, as well as students, and of course American scholars and students to Russia. Originally, the Fulbright program supported scholars working in the humanities, but now for practically the last 10 years, it's been supporting scholars really in all areas of study. So we have a wide range of scholars. As you may remember, one of the Americans who was in Russia on a Fulbright scholarship is doing nanotechnology and working actually closely with Mr. Prokhorov, the owner, I think, of the basketball team in Brooklyn,
That's
as
right.
well as someone who's trying to create his own automobile company using specialized technologies that depend on advances in nanotechnology to work. So really the Fulbright scholars who are working in Russia are really at the cutting edge in all fields. And so we were very excited when we conducted that 40th anniversary conference to view all the different sorts of work they do, everything from music to photography, nanotechnology, as I mentioned, all of these things. So it's really been a wonderful program for advancing mutual understanding between Russia and the United States. And I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to be part of all of that, because Russia, now they're the 9th largest economy in the world. They're working very hard to raise the status of their universities. They're trying to create a Russian Ivy League, as it were. And I think Fulbright can play an important part in getting the Russians to where they want to be. We're very interested in helping Russian scholars working, say, for example, in joint research projects, so that they can publish more at an international level, do the things they need to do to get their universities up there with the best in the world.
Yes, that's the 40th anniversary conference that happened to be taking place while we were there was pretty impressive. Certainly the number of scholars from both the United States and Russia who spoke were very impressive, and then those of us who were participating in our program got to moderate some panels. I know in my case I got to moderate a panel on political science professors, which was a very interesting opportunity, and working directly with faculty. These are folks that have been in the United States over the years and reported on their research. So it was that was very, very interesting. I think it's great now that Fulbright has branched out into other areas, and particularly delighted that community colleges are now part of the equation. I think I know David and I both feel that our sector is such an important aspect of higher education in this country, and certainly a model that can be used and at least benchmarked with institutions around the world, including Russia. So we're very grateful to Fulbright for including us in that opportunity.
I agree. I think that the Community College Administrators Seminar is really important, and both for American community colleges, but also for the community college equivalent in Russia. And as you know, you were able to visit a wide range of institutions, including those that work in a similar way to the community colleges. They're focusing on the needs of the industrial sector, for example, in the communities.
Yes.
And many of them are actually using imported equipment from a variety of countries and companies in order to get their students ready to work at the most advanced level. I think you remember visiting the Krasnodarsk Technical University, where we saw things not only like three-dimensional printers, but even three-dimensional copiers.
Yes.
Something I don't think any of us had ever even heard of.
Right.
So it was pretty interesting to see that Russian universities are really committed to staying at the cutting edge, and some of them are getting the level of state investment that they need to do so.
Joel, thank you very much for joining us. I know you have to run off to a meeting. When we return from the break, we will be joined by David Armstrong, president of Broward College in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Please stay with us.
Not all County College of Morris students look like me.
Some look like me.
Or me.
Or me.
Or me.
We all come to CCM at different stages of life.
And for different reasons.
I plan to transfer to a university.
I'm training for a new career as a nurse.
But we all know one thing.
CCM is where we want to be.
So check out the website.
Check out the website.
Check out the website.
And let CCM connect learning and your life.
Welcome back to Campus Connect. I'm your host, Ed Yaw, and before I introduce President Armstrong from Broward College in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I should mention that there were three other county college administrators that joined us on our trip to Russia under the Fulbright program. They included Adelina Silva from the Alamo Colleges in San Antonio, Texas, Margaret Bidzil from De Anza College in Cupertino, California, and Rick Shrub, who's the president of Minnesota West Colleges in Southwest Minnesota. David, delighted to have you with us, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Ed. It's a great pleasure to be with you remotely, electronically, the miracles of technology from Fort Lauderdale to your lovely village outside of New York City. It's great to be with you.
Well, it's great, and I think we're probably both still digesting that fabulous 2 weeks that we had in Russia. And I know since then you've done a lot more traveling as well. I know that Broward College has a strong commitment and engagement in international education. But before we get to all of that, if you don't mind, maybe give us a little bit of your own background and what brought you to the presidency at Broward.
Well, thank you, Ed. Again, thank you for having me with you. It was a delightful trip to Russia. And I really enjoyed getting to know you and learning about your wonderful college and the great things that you do with your strength and programs and the performing arts and many other areas. And I hope that we can find some ways to get our faculty and students together and work together. I've been here at Broward in Fort Lauderdale for about 6 years now. And previously, I was in our state capital in Tallahassee. I was the chancellor for our system, working with 28 colleges. But there's nothing better, as you well know, than being on a college campus and being able to work with wonderful, brilliant faculty members, working with our business community, and then interacting with the reason we exist, our students.
Yep. That's right. And maybe, if you don't mind, comment a little bit about the many activities you have going in the international communities around the world.
Sure. Much like your area and the New York City area in particular, South Florida is becoming very, very diverse. And so at our college, we have 67,000 students, for example, and there are students from over 150 different nations of origin. In fact, about a third of our students were not born in the United States, and so their families have moved here to South Florida, just as they are all over the United States, seeking the American dream. And the way for them to get the American dream, of course, is through education, and that's what our community colleges, yours and ours, and the 1,200 around the nation do a great job of. So in addition to that, then, we have formed partnerships around the world. We like to say that the sun never sets on Broward College. So we have formed partnerships with universities and colleges in China and Vietnam and Sri Lanka, Singapore, and Asia, India, a few other places. And then more specifically, we're working hard to establish more relationships in developing countries in Latin America and the Caribbean as well, where most of our natural pipeline of migrants and students come from. So this past week, for example, I was visiting Chile in Santiago, and we visited with the Fulbright director there, as well as visiting with 6 universities in the Santiago area, and we'll continue to talk to them. And then finally, we're bringing together all of our partners. About a dozen institutions from around the world that we work with are coming to visit us in about a week here in Fort Lauderdale, and we'll talk about best practices and how we can internationalize the curriculum and promote global education for our students, as well as students in other places who want to come here and study.
Well, congratulations to you and to all the folks at Broward for that very ambitious a program, and as we've discussed, our students really benefit from that. We do live in a very much of a global community, and the more we can do to give our students experiences with people from other cultures, the better off we feel that they will be in the long term, and we as a nation will be as well. So congratulations for your good work in that area. Let's talk about the program that we had the good fortune. I know in my case, I got an email that I responded to, ended up applying, and was very happy to find out that I was selected. I suspect you went through sort of the same process, and then of course we got there, and no sooner did we land in Moscow, but it was we had to get up very early the next morning to fly off to Yelabuga, which was a wonderful welcoming experience. I don't know if you have any recollections of that you'd like to share.
I do. Wasn't that spectacular? Even though we were tired, we were immediately felt at home and welcomed by the welcoming party, I guess, if you will, of the students who were dressed in their traditional dress from the Yelabuga region, a very historic area. They did a dance for us, a traditional dance, and with traditional music, and then and I don't remember the names of all these things. They have good memories.
Right. I don't either.
Caps that we all got presented, and then the desserts, the little honey-covered cakes that they presented to us. So they really made us feel at home, and it was a great start to the.
That was it. Really was wonderful, and I remember. One of their faculty members who taught English was very proud of her students as they gave us a tour not only of their campus but also of the museum. In fact, I was struck by the fact that several of the institutions we visited had museums, and Yelabuga was certainly a very good one as well. And the students did quite well with their English, so we were I was very impressed.
Also, I told several people, the students I think that we encountered there and the faculty members who have studied linguistics and English in particular, and especially those who had been in the States on Fulbright scholarships, their English was as good an English as I've heard anyone from another language and another culture be able to speak. So that was very impressive.
Yes, it certainly was. And then we headed back to Naberezhny Chelny, visited a couple of institutions there. I remember in particular the one that had the relationship with KAMAZ trucks. And we got a tour of their campus and saw the mechanical labs and so forth. Very impressive. And it was interesting model, I think, that many of us can learn from in terms of the direct relationship between the training that takes place at that institution and the manufacturer, the largest manufacturer of trucks, I believe, in Russia, that was close by. Very impressive.
Yep, that was very impressive, and I think you're right, Ed. That's where you and I probably and our other colleagues began to see, well, this is a natural, very similar kind of relationship that we do here at home, and they do it quite well. They're still, as we recognize, very labor intensive in their manufacturing processes. I believe that KAMAZ truck factory had 40,000 employees.
Yes.
We discussed with them how eventually technology they would need to use, and therefore they would need more trained workers in those areas, and those institutions are working closely with them on exactly those things, just like your college and ours and other community colleges do here in the United States.
Right. I think we saw some evidence of the new technology as well in terms of the robotics and the other technologies that I'm sure they'll be using. And of course, how can we forget the tour of the KAMAZ factory, or the showcase, I guess you'd call it, and those amazing racing trucks that they produce. And you've probably had a chance too to see some of the videos on YouTube of the KAMAZ truck races from Paris to Dakar. It's pretty impressive what they're able to accomplish.
It really is. I can't think of anything to compare it with, but I suppose here in the United States, anybody who's racing fans knows what goes in to support a NASCAR or Formula One race team, and the KAMAZ team exceeded anything that I have ever witnessed here before. The investment that's there, I mean, they're sponsored by Red Bull, and Red Bull doesn't sponsor anybody unless it's top of the line, and so they're well supported, and very proud of the very high quality trucks that they manufacture, as they should be.
As you say, it's I thought it was kind of like NASCAR on steroids. It was really pretty impressive. When we return from the break, we will continue our discussion of the colleges and universities we visited and the cultural experiences we shared as part of the Community College Administrator Seminar in Russia earlier this year. Don't go away.
Hey Roberta, it's Kathy. I found a great place that you have to check out right off Route 10 in Randolph.
What is it?
It's the Women's Center at CCM.
The Women's Center at County College of Morris?
That's right. It's a fantastic place located right at the County College of Morris. They do a variety of things to help you become independent.
Like what?
They helped me to identify my job skills and helped me with my resume. They have current job market information too. I even went through a mock interview. I'm working now with someone to help me find a job with a future.
That sounds great for you, Kathy, but I haven't worked for years. I've been home with the kids.
Roberta, they specialize in helping women who have lost the support of their spouse, and you work with someone one-on-one.
I don't know. I mean, you know me. I don't even know the first thing about computers. Forget about a resume.
They have one-on-one help to teach you about computers. They also have a legal clinic that can help you get valuable information regarding your divorce. They do a variety of things to help you get back into the workforce. They even have a job club open to any woman looking for work.
How much does it cost?
The advice is free.
Free?
That's right, free.
Okay, what do I do?
Just call 973-328-5025 for an appointment, and they'll tell you more.
Welcome back to Campus Connect. I'm your host, Ed Yaw, and I've been speaking with David Armstrong, president of Broward College in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So David, we were just talking about some of the institutions we visited. Let's talk about a couple more. I know that I was particularly impressed with Kazan Federal University. Of course, Kazan, as we both learned, I didn't know this beforehand, you may have, Kazan, they claim, is the third capital of Russia after Moscow and St. Petersburg, and also the sports capital. and as they're preparing for the Universiade, which will take place there in June, I believe. So there's a lot of excitement about that. And apparently they're going to be a host for the World Cup in a couple of years, and the International Swimming Championships as well. So very much sports oriented. But Kazan Federal University, I don't know about you, but I felt, certainly compared to the other institutions we had seen previously, was extremely well maintained, well equipped. If there's an Ivy League in Russia, Kazan Federal University would probably be in that class. What are your thoughts about Kazan Federal?
I think so. I agree with you, Ed. A little bit of further research I've done, and we actually are staying in touch with a couple of people at Kazan, and we're going to have a teleconference with them to discuss some other issues. They're interested, for example, in Latin American studies, and so here in South Florida we have a natural connection with that, so we're following up with them. But I agree with you, and the research I did as a follow-up, it appears to me that behind Moscow State University and St. Petersburg State University, which are the ultra elites, Kazan is right there in the same pack with them. And you're right, they are very well equipped, high quality faculty, and doing a lot of great work in many different areas, and have a rich heritage and history, as we learned with yet another museum, as you mentioned earlier, so many of the institutions have. So I also love the area. I got out and walked around when we had a little free time and saw the soccer stadium. My son is a soccer fan, so I always take a look at the soccer stadiums, and yes, they're going to host a World Cup in the future. They also, as you recall, that region is so proud of their culture and their values, and there's something that we can all learn from there. They're very proud of their tolerance of other religions. There's a blending there of the Muslim faith and Christian faiths. We saw Greek Orthodox churches, I'm sorry, not Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox churches on one side of the river, and then on the other side we would see a mosque. And they talked about how they shared holidays together. The relationships are very tolerant, and so the culture we were all very impressed with as well as the university.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Kazan Federal University is proud of some of its former students. We can't say graduates, because probably the two most famous students didn't graduate, one being, of course, Lenin, who was, I think they said, was there for about 3 months before he was dismissed for organizing students. And then, of course, Leo Tolstoy was also a former student. And again, he wasn't there for very long either. I think I recall them saying that he was too busy acting and hosting parties and so forth. So not exactly a model for our completion agenda, which is so important to us in community colleges. But nevertheless, they did have a statue to Lenin in front of the university, even though he was only there for a very short period of time. But very interesting indeed. Maybe we could move on to another institution that was very unique, and that was what they call the IT College, which is really a secondary school that's just opened, and it's on the campus of the Universiade. I think they started with students, if I remember correctly, in the 7th or 8th form, and so they only had maybe 2 classes of students, and then gradually they're going to add other classes up to Form 11, which is their equivalent of our high school senior year. But again, very well equipped facilities, very bright students, all male, and they had a residence hall that was actually connected to their academic structure. So that was very impressive. Very impressed with the faculty as well as the students in that institution. I've never seen anything quite like it in this country.
I agree with you, and it showed us yet again, and the many examples we saw, but that was a different and unique one, the real commitment that the Russian government and the people of Russia have to education, and a strong commitment to the STEM areas. And so many of the best and brightest students have the opportunity to attend this new facility that is as well equipped as as anything that you and I have seen in the United States. I guess we could think of it as a brand new residential STEM academy that students learn about technology and IT, and with great labs, well equipped. And then in addition to that, some outstanding faculty members we saw teaching biology and other sciences. So we know that to stay competitive in the world, not only with Russia, but China and many other places, we have to continue to upgrade and improve our educational facilities in the STEM areas and our programs, and provide investment in our colleges and in our high schools so that we can continue to compete internationally, and our students can compete internationally. We've been through educational races with Russia in the past, and the United States benefited from that because we tried to keep pace after they beat us to space, and that led to some major infusions of investments from our federal and state governments into universities. And I know you and I would probably agree with a lot of our colleagues, it's time for us to invest in education even more to help America's future leaders rise to a high level with quality education.
That's great, and it's very timely. We're getting some reports now coming out of national reports on the gap in funding support for community colleges across the country, and the stratification that's taking place among students, minority and the poor in particular, in our institutions, and that's something I'm sure and hope that we'll be hearing a lot more about. But lest we get into that philosophical political discussion, I think another highlight for me, and I think for you as well, was, again, and you mentioned it before, the cultural opportunities that we had. In addition to attending about 11 or 12 institutions, we had the chance to see the Kremlin in Kazan, which, as you mentioned, included not only a Russian Orthodox cathedral, but also the largest mosque in Europe, I believe, able to accommodate something like 6,000 worshipers at one time. And of course, the Kremlin in Moscow, as well as Red Square, was very impressive, as we expected. And then finally, you and I both had an opportunity to attend the Bolshoi Theater for opera and the ballet, having seen the opening night of Ivan the Terrible, of all things, was quite an experience. What are your thoughts on the cultural activities that we had?
Well, Ed, you and I talked about this a lot throughout the trip. The interest in the arts of all kinds that we saw, not only at some of the specialized universities that we went to the Art Institute with traditional classical painting. I remember everywhere we went, we saw musicians carrying their musical instruments. I remember a plane when we went out to Kazan. We had a whole orchestra, I think, on board our plane. The hotel we stayed at in Moscow, we were just down the street from the Tchaikovsky Institute.
Yes.
And then attending the Bolshoi, it was very special. I mean, we were fortunate to be there this year after a major renovation and expansion of about $1 billion. And of course, that theater, that ballet is maybe the best in the world. And even though we were up in the upper stratosphere, it was still a wonderful thing to see the theater and to see the ballet. And to share that with you, Ed, was very special because of your particular interest in your college's strength, I know, in the performing arts. So I learned a lot from you along the trip about the arts, and we got to see how much the Russian people at all levels, not just through universities, but throughout the culture, really appreciate music, art, literature, with great writers that they've had in their past as well.
David, thank you so much. It's been great reconnecting with you. Look forward to doing this again, perhaps on some other topics. We only have really scratched the surface. We didn't even get to talk about the agricultural institutions that we visited, or the last institution we visited, but we're running out of time, so we may have to do a sequel to this at some point in the future. So That wraps up this edition of Campus Connect. I want to thank my guests, Joel Ericson, Director of the Fulbright Program in Russia, and David Armstrong, President of Broward College in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for joining me today. For more information about the Fulbright Program in Russia, please visit the website that appears on your screen at the moment. And for more information about Broward College, please visit their website. I'd like to know more about your thoughts about today's program and ask you to share your comments and thoughts with me. You can write to me at Youatt County College of Morris, 214 Center Grove Road, Randolph, New Jersey, 07869, or email me at eyaw@ccm.edu. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Ed Yaw, and we'll see you next time on Campus Connect on Morris Educational Television.